In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
a place at the table where we're set to take much more than the table.
Hello, Nigerians. Welcome to another episode of A Place at the Table, where some things change and some things remain the same. I'm querying, how long will Nigerians continue to be taken for granted?
Ande, it's like we don't know that things won't change until we change it. I'm proudly saying I'm a politician.
This change we speak of is not as simple as ABC. Some might even say it's rooted in our DNA. I'm asking, can we change Nigeria without changing the Nigerian?
Whose DNA, Yinka? I beg, speak for yourself. I will be speaking on some exemplary people in a time of need. And yes, they're Nigerians.
Funke, I share your hope. However, remember I said that Nigeria has been good to me most of the times. Sometimes Nigeria does let us down. And in this time, it's a woman that's the hindrance.
I love the hopeful atmosphere. Hope is good. And far be it from me to put sand in anybody's gari. But first, we must draw a line in the sand. Still on SARS. And I'm not talking about severe acute respiratory syndrome. No. I'm speaking about Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, the one you know, the ones Nigerian protested about. This is not the topic I intended to discuss this week, but I am compelled. I'm compelled by the events of Saturday, 24th February. My driver did not turn up for work on Monday, 26th February. He could not be reached on the phone. On further investigation, I learned SARS had raided his area in Guzape Mountain Village in Abuja, and he was in detention at the SARS office in Guzape. Eventually, on Tuesday, his people were able to get him out. He had been picked up right from his bedroom on Saturday night while deep asleep, himself and many others in the neighborhood. Their crime? They were living in illegal shanties, and government wants to evacuate them. While in SARS office, the plan was ongoing to process them through mobile courts and to send them to prison. They were to be processed as criminals caught in a black spot with drug peddlers and hardened criminals. They had not been fed for 3 days. According to his testimony, they were packed in a cell in a way one wouldn't even keep animals. I was shocked to learn about all this. What about the massive end-SARS protest that shook government to its core, or so we thought? Such injustice perpetrated against citizens whose only crime is that they are poor. I am inclined to say the government doesn't really care about demands of Nigerians. They wait for a protest or whatever agitation to pass, as it definitely will, and then continue business as usual. After all, we cannot spend all our lives on the streets protesting. I will suggest that going forward, Nigerians make specific demands that government must meet before any protest, physical or virtual, ends. Specifically, heads of agencies found oppressing the people and breaking the law with impunity must be relieved of their duties. If it's the police, let the IG of police go. If it's a hospital, let the chief medical director go. If it's a university, let the vice chancellor go. If it's the army, let the army chief go. I believe this is the only measure that will get public officials being maintained on public funds to do the right thing. While demanding broader change, Nigerians must demand for dismissal of heads of any agencies found wanting. In other climes, they will resign honorably, but not in Nigeria. Enough is enough.
Why are we all looking depressed? For goodness sakes.
Because the very point that we're back to this bus stop, you know?
You know what I wanted to say? When you said still on SARS. I was going to say SARS again, but yeah. Look, you're right. Everything you said, I was counting. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days. 4 days of being locked up, 4 days of being detained, 4 days of being criminalized because you are poor. Yet another evidence that the biggest crime you can commit in Nigeria is to be poor. And this man, your driver, and possibly all the others that were living with him, are all having to live in shanties in a country that has a huge housing deficit, amongst other things. You would at least expect these very same police who live in squalor in their barracks, because the only reason they're better than those people is that their barracks is official, but they live in worse squalor even. We've seen it online. You'd expect them, at the very least, to be the ones who stand for justice, who uphold the law, but also do their work with empathy and sympathy and respect, and just say, look, we're giving you 24 hours, you've got to go. Even if we complain that's too much, rather than being arrested because here's a driver earning a living, sending money to his family, and then being criminalized. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. So in fact, and it's not a case of end SARS, just scrap SARS, scrap all of them. And when you said somebody must go, somebody must go, you reminded me of, don't know whether you're old enough to know Ali must go. That's what that kept running in my head. The former Minister of Education, who dared to increase the tuition fees back then, wasn't it? And the students came out and they said, Ali must go. No, I wasn't in this country, but I read history.
Well, I'll just start by saying that that particular SARS office in Abuja is actually called Abattoir.
That area?
Yeah, the office itself, because there are always reports that people are being killed and thrown away when people are taken in there. So that's the kind of name that it has. That tells you, in a way, you know...
Abattoir is a nickname for it.
Yes, the nickname for it, Abattoir, just like where you slaughter animals.
Yes.
A slaughterhouse.
Yes, like a slaughterhouse. So that's the nickname that we have for it. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, if you're poor, you're faceless, nameless, and voiceless. That's right. What has happened. And the only reason why we're getting to hear about this is because you were able to give your driver a voice and a name and a face. I'm just hearing this now, and it happened in Abuja, and I live in Abuja. And so how many other events just like this that we have out there? On the issue of housing, if Nigeria was the kind of country that it's supposed to be, not everybody needs to live in Abuja. There are people who literally can live in Kaduna or Nasarawa or even Niger State and still work in Abuja. So you come, you commute. You're able to commute very well. You come in, you work, and then you go back. But, of course, we don't have all the things that we're supposed to have here. And then we have people, you know, struggling to live in these places. And I do get the fact, like, you know, when they're told to leave, the question is, leave to where? Yeah. But sometimes there are actually options for them to leave, but people just don't respect the rules when they're told. But then the government needs to do more. I see recently, you know, the Lagos State government has said something, and I think even in the Senate, there's a particular senator, whether it's Nedwoko, that has been fixated on accommodation and the fact that people are paying yearly, they should be paying monthly and all of that. I'm like, why don't you guys build houses? The monies that they collected for the vehicles, Nedwoko collected, did he not collect the money they gave him? Why didn't he say all that money should be put together to go and build? I'm a property investor. I build houses. I have tenants. The government doesn't give me anything. I even had to buy cement up to 15,000, 16,000 recently. So why would they not be telling you what to do? Let the government use a lot of excess money and begin to build houses for people to have.
Yinka looks like he's been waiting to say something.
You know, I have a historical perspective to this, and also, you know, slightly global perspective. Number one, the issue of housing deficit is not peculiar to Nigeria.
Not at all.
It's a global problem.
Yeah.
And even around us here in Lagos, you remember the evacuation of Morocco.
Yeah.
Many, many years ago. And what does it produce? It does produce the new Morocco community. They've not solved the problem. They've just moved the people to another, you know, place. So for me...
For a more affluent community.
They moved it away from more affluent community, but then the people just kind of just went on top of water. So the issue here is how do we solve this problem, this housing problem? And that's where, it brings in the issue of law and legislation. Because for me, I want to see the solutions. And Nigeria is now more fixated over other issues around the fuel subsidy, FX, everything. And we're losing one critical factor that actually makes people committed to the country. That's housing. If a man cannot live and have a home under his head, somewhere that he can call home and be safe, you cannot expect that man to be committed to the country. So my challenge would be to the lawmakers, as Aisha said, let them go and then look at these things seriously. The poor need housing, and he should not be deprived of housing because he's poor. He should have a housing commensurate with his income. That's what you should do.
I have something to say, but let Funke.
Yeah, I'm going to respond to this in two ways. First, the issue of citizenship, and the second, the issue of housing that you've talked about, Yinka. First of all, the thing is, once you're picked up in Nigeria, you're seen as a criminal first. It doesn't matter who you are. And then when they pick you, the failure to get in touch with people, your loved ones, it's just crazy. If you weren't the person that you are, your driver would have been gone as gone. Because he would have nobody to speak on his behalf. Now, it's not just your driver. It's the same thing with the unemployed and students. So now we're back to SARS and the menace that there were before EndSARS. Right. The second peg is about housing. You've talked about how global it is, and I'm going to come to you, Ireti. The thing is, in Nigeria, there is no more low-cost housing like Jakonde did in his time here in Lagos. So in Abuja, I'm here to hear that there's a low-cost housing scheme in Abuja. It's like it's a given that everyone who lives in Abuja is elite and must have money. You talked about Morocco. Morocco gave way to the elites to have their way. The same thing is happening in Ibadan now. So they've taken some space. Iguagala is now some estate, and it's not for the poor. The thing is, how can we talk about our humanity when we just provide for a section of the populace and leave the others? Are they not human beings like us? Do they not have a right to housing that they can afford? So this is about affordable housing, and it pegs on the SDG as well.
The right to housing is one of the fundamental human rights, and we're about to digress. I'm not even talking about the housing problem. If indeed they are residents of illegal shanties, does that give SARS the right to pick them up, keep them for 3 days? And with what Aisha said, corresponds to what my driver said. He tried to make a call, they collected his phone, switched it off. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why do you pick up somebody then switch off their phones? Like, in civilized countries that we see, they tell you have a right to an attorney, the right to be silent, the right to do this. So you collect the phone, switch it off, take the person to your station. What is really the motive behind that?
Nobody knows where the person is.
I don't understand this.
Well, Ande, the whole essence of EndSARS protest was people fighting for right to live.
Thank you.
It's not even in Nigeria. Let's even, before we get to housing, because a policeman will say to you, I will kill you and nothing would happen to you. And on the 20th of October 2020, indeed, Nigerians actually saw that the police were right when they said they will kill us and nothing will happen to them.
The tipping point might eventually come as we individually and collectively say enough is enough. No grief for anybody.
I will go one step further from talk to action. I say, rather than complaining about the rubbish in the house, roll up your sleeves and do something about it. After all, no one was born with a dustpan and a broom. I'm a politician. All my life, I've made choices. I'm into the Nigerian politics now. And on my watch and in places I operate from, I will ensure it is clean. We're always being told that politics in Nigeria is dirty. Any talk of being ashamed of politics or regretting politics, count me out. If you say Nigerian politics is dirty, roll up your sleeves. Let's get it clean. Doing nothing never solves anything. Nature abhors vacuum. If you stay away, others will occupy the space and make the decisions on your behalf. These were the words I posted on my X handle, formerly known as Twitter, on the 5th of March. And you would have thought I had just been caught committing a serious crime. From those who were insulting me to those who said I had left activism to join politics because of money, I laughed. Insults and praises are the same. They are people's opinion about me and not my reality. Pata we use the insult to rub our body like Vaseline. In Nigeria, we've been conditioned to believe that politics is dirty, and the moment you participate in it, you become soiled. This has led to charlatans taking over the political space, and we constantly wonder why we are suffering from bad governance. I've always maintained that politics and activism have the same purpose. They are both for the greater good of the people. It is the execution that differs. Where activism is focused on pointing out the problems, politics is focused on solving the problems. Politics is how we get the people who will govern us and make policies which either make or mar our lives. In what way does it make sense for us to say we will not participate in politics? It was Plato that said, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Does that sound familiar? It is our story in Nigeria. I used to be a political illiterate, as described by Bertolt Brecht. According to him, the worst illiterate is the political illiterate. He doesn't hear, doesn't speak, nor participates in the political events. He doesn't know the cost of life, the price of the beans, of the fish, of flour, of rent, of shoes, and the medicine. All depends on political decisions. The political illiterate is so stupid that he is proud and swears his chest, saying that he hates politics. The imbecile, what we call imbecile, doesn't know that from his political ignorance is born the prostitute, the abandoned child, the worst thieves of all, the bad politician, corrupted and lackeys of the national and multinational companies. These words are very strong words, but those were his words, and that's the end of the quote. I'm no longer a political illiterate, and I take pride in saying to you, my name is Aisha Yesufu, and I am a politician. Thank you.
Oh, wow. I'm always applauded on this show, right? I noticed that the other day.
Yes, she did.
It's, you know, I kept feeling like you were talking to me. Let me confess. Because you're right, there is a condition in this country that where when you think of politicians, you think negative, you think, I can't be that, I can't be a part of them, but then you're on the other side complaining about these very same people who you know are not fit to lead you. And then we have this sort of conundrum, and that's the conundrum that you were actually sort of triggering in me. And I have to say this, the reason I applaud it for you is whether you decide to go into party politics or you choose to stay in community politics or you choose to stay as Aisha Yesufu politician. People have to understand that there's several ways of being a politician. Yes. That's the first thing. The second thing is that whichever one you choose to do, to actually come out and self-label as something as strong and as emotive and as open to criticism as being a politician, that's courage, that's bravery, that's standing above your peers and say, hold me responsible. I am putting myself out there to be challenged, to be held accountable. I am saying I will constantly strive to do my best. That's actually why I applaud you. I'm the activist you talk about. And, you know, there's something in politics where they say, the easiest job in politics is to be the opposition. The easiest job in social politics and social justice is to be an activist. Because if somebody say you say taka 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 taka, if they say you say taka 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 taka, when they invite you together, you're like, oh, Waladi, what will I do now? Do you understand? Because really, it always seems easy.
You have to be accountable to the people. There's a freedom you have when you're advocating. You're really not accountable to anyone. I mean, if you do anyhow, if you say anyhow, you see anyhow. But when you try to get into, you collect. But as one, maybe if you're a public servant or you're in active politics, you then will not be able to do a lot of things. But you, like what you rightly said, it's not just about, politics is not only about running for office like a lot of people say, Yinka.
It's interesting because I'm sitting between two women that are...
hold your elbow.
Two women that are, you know, very strong activists, and I'm beginning to ask myself, is God trying to tell me something? If you are, the answer is no. The interesting thing about it, and that's what I love from what Aisha said, is it's a call to political activism for everybody. And then, you know, we can literally say, I mean, the end of a quote that she says, I'm Aisha Yesufu and I'm a politician. Every single, what she's doing is that she's calling on every single citizen to actually be a politician. And I think that's, you know, the challenge for a citizen to say, can actually be a politician without actually running for office?
Yep.
The answer is yes. You can actually be a politician by being politically active. Because when you're politically active, by asking questions, by being engaged in your community, by asking basic questions, you actually are in a position to influence policy, you know, in the way that things are done. And I think that the charge to which I'm taking away from this, you know, because I'm the people in the group that, like, I'm not a politician, so don't even start it. But I think the charge for me is to leave here and to say, hey, I can actually be a politician, really, without necessarily, you know, carrying the ballots and saying that I want to be. And I leave out that to Aisha and, you know, and Co. That let them go into the field and do all the noise making. Those of us who are on the back end of it can, you know, support you.
Do the policies and
do the policy side of it. But then that's the message that I think everybody should take away from this. I'm a politician and I can be active in politics.
First of all, this is about the perception of women in politics. It's not that they don't like that one is a politician, but first of all, that you're a woman and you want to be a politician. Secondly, their beloved Aisha now wants to join them. So it's about binaries, us and them. We versus the politicians, our perpetual enemies. But they forget that we all need political agency to be politically literate. Because if you leave these things to them and us, we are here, it's us versus them, we're not going to move. Just as you've said, we keep leaving the political arena for those who are particularly wolves. So they go there and they're not minding our welfare. And then we complain about them. So really what we should be doing is to change the perception about politics and who should participate in politics. We all should be politically aware. We all should be politically literate. We all should have political agency. Having said that, what is wrong in a woman being in politics? We have to change the perception about women in politics. They want us to be seen and not heard. They want us to be vice president. They want us to be minister for women affairs and children affairs and humanitarian affairs, and never in that read at the core of the action, what's going on. We don't want to be vice president, we want to be president. We want to be governors. And that's where we're going. So Aisha, I congratulate you. We will be singing your praises at the back and be saying, Aisha, go.
Aisha is a politician.
Yes,
Aisha.
Ande.
No rhetorics from me. I love the quotes by Plato, and that is why I'm very interested in politics. Yes, including partisan politics to run for elected office. I always tell people close to me that if Nigeria and Africa was developing smoothly, my ambition would be to have a farmhouse in the woods, reading my books in peace. But that's not the case. So what is my message to everyone? When things are bad, don't jackpot, join politics. My name is Ande Aisha, Elisha, and I'm going to join partisan politics.
Okay. Nice one.
You see that no grief for anybody, eh? It means that you and I, we must stop making excuses for ourselves. Like I always say, excuses are like shoes, and you always find the one that fits. So let's stop it. Abi, how you take Yinka?
It's like you read my mind, Aisha. Last week, Funke went lyrical and asked us to look at the mirror. Today, I decided to take a good look at the mirror. And what I see, ain't pretty. Dysfunction Nigeria Limited. You see, ours is a largely dysfunctional society. A friend once called it organized chaos. But don't be deceived. We like our dysfunction the way it is, because it allows us to rile against the system while at the same time take advantage of it when it suits us. In Nigeria, driving one way, we still wail against the problem of traffic congestion in Lagos, forgetting the role it's playing in creating the mess in the first place. A Nigerian will create a third lane on the curb from a two-lane road, while still complaining about the quality of the road and government's inability to fix it. He hates dysfunction, but will not hesitate to be dysfunctional. A Nigerian will complain about the dysfunction of people presenting fake certificates to obtain political appointments, but will gladly arrange fake documents to obtain visas, jobs, and contracts. Some will even arrange for mercenaries to help them sit for exams. You know yourself. Dysfunction is only a thing if it doesn't favor him. In Nigeria, we wail against corruption of politicians, while at the same time padding invoices at work or stealing cooperative funds left in his care. He hates corruption when he's not the beneficiary, but he excuses corruption when he or his kin will benefit from it. In Nigeria, will cost government for flooded roads and streets, where the very house he lives is blocking a major drain needed for water to drain. Ask him why, and he will point to a permit to build issued by another corrupt and dysfunctional public officer. Nigeria will swear an oath as a public officer to discharge his duty to the best of his ability, faithfully and in accordance to the Constitution. To him, what that means is license and permission to divert what is meant for everyone to himself and his family. Even when his oath is to save lives, he's happy to put profit or a piece of paper called police report before he can treat his patients. I could go on and on. Sometimes, when I'm truly fed up, I raise up my hands and I say, I give up. It's like we like our dysfunction. We love our chaos. We adore our corruption because it is who we are. Quite simply, we like to eat our cake and have it. And this leads me to the question that I always ask, and I've asked many, many times. Can we change Nigeria without changing the Nigerian?
Yinka, I'll go first because this is a topic that is dear to my heart, and I always defend the Nigerian. You see, I get what you are trying to say, but leadership is everything. And we cannot be mediocre in our expectations of our leaders, okay? I prefer to focus on the root causes: careless, corrupt, bad governance. I work in the development space. Auditors audit invoices. Some people came and thought they could beat the system the way they do in other sectors. And when examples were made of people started doing the right thing. If government doesn't hold people accountable anywhere in the world, people will resort to impunity. These same leaders, it's not like they don't know what to do. Let it come to revenue collection, be it VIO, road safety, customs, or whoever. If they are to collect money, you will see that they know what to do. So I put everything, okay? The buck stops with the leaders. If you punish impunity, it will be controlled. Anywhere in the world you don't punish impunity, people will do what they like.
Before you go. So when you say you know it's not the right, how do they know? There's no way they will know that it's not the right thing because they're getting away with it. And they're seeing people doing it, and they're getting away with it. So the person who had people coming to write exams for them, the person is they're probably in their 50s right now. And so they're going to do it for their children because they've been able to benefit from it. So they don't know. Human beings are not born to know right or wrong. You're taught to know as you go on. And one of the things is that, that's why you have punishment for when people don't do the right thing. For example, if you see, even when we say litter, it's such a common thing. Someone will just see a clean place and will throw something out. You're wondering, can't you? But maybe they don't. Sometimes it's when you talk to them. He doesn't know that he doesn't need to. They don't even say. They don't know because it's the norm. We have to, you understand, there are places they go to. So why, if you say it's a Nigerian thing, why do we leave the country and everybody suddenly falls in place? You queue, you stand. Because, they know, because the enabling environment there, because when you do the wrong thing, you're either looked at strangely, or you pay a fine, or you do something. No problem, litter. Continue. I even like, if I'm in government, I would like people to litter. When you litter, you pay 5,000. By the time you do it for the 10th time and you've paid 50,000, your sense will come down. So
it's about consequences.
It's about consequences. That's the word. That's exactly the word I'm looking for.
Just to pick on something Aisha said. It is not knowledge that stops us when we travel out of this country from not doing the wrong thing. You know you will be caught and you will be punished.
Well, because this society nurtures dysfunction and dysfunctional behavior. They actually reward it. The thing is, when you're not dysfunctional, you're despised, you're shamed for doing the right thing in Nigeria. You're a minister, you're not corrupt, you're shamed.
Your community shames you.
As a civil servant that is not corrupt. You're shamed. So this society really nurtures it. We permit and we nurture it. We just as someone said today, you criticize corruption because it's not happening to you. You're not the beneficiary. But when you're the beneficiary, oh, it's okay, it's good. So we nurture it. And the truth is, until there is punishment for not doing the right thing, and there is shaming of those who do the wrong thing, really, in Nigeria, and not plea bargaining for those who steal, and for those who say, I mistakenly sent this huge amount in billions to my private account.
When you care about something, you do something about it. So the question is, do people care enough about Nigeria to change themselves so Nigeria can be better? I can only speak for myself. Yes, I do. But I did want to say something about that chaos, that dysfunction. I think it was Funke that said it. You say there's something in management that says from chaos comes creativity. Just think about that for a second and think how creative we are in Nigeria.
Yeah, in Nigeria,
From chaos comes creativity. For a lot of us who grew up in the UK, it's boring now. Nigeria, there's a lot to be done. It's fertile land for you to plant on. But that fertility comes partly from that chaos that you talk about. So there's always something to do and always something to be done.
Is it a vicious circle? Changing the Nigerian to change Nigeria? Like Bongo Zikwe said, or sang. Will we ever get there? Will we ever make it? Will we ever hear the sound of the cockroach?
See how you know the end bit?
Yeah, I don't know that song.
You don't? Oh, wow.
I'm Gen Z.
I'm Gen Z.
This piece is inspired by 5 Nigerians who've displayed uncommon solutions to the hunger in the land by their empathy and humanity in this season of hunger. First, I'll acknowledge the Saturday editor of the Tribune newspaper, Dr. Lasisi Olagunju, who in his Monday Lines column titled Kumuyi, Tortoise and Looter's Noodles, pointed me to the first hero, the General Superintendent of the Deeper Life Bible Church, Pastor William Kumuyi. Now, Pastor Kumuyi asked his church members to redirect their offerings to the poor and the needy in their communities. He said, and I quote, "All the offerings are not just for the church. There are poor people around. There are unemployed people around. There are indigent people around. We must build our campground. I know, I understand. We're going to build it. But while you're building the church, your neighbors are dying. Which one comes first? When your house is leaking and your mother is dying, how would you spend the money? Mending the leaking room or taking care of your mother?" He said his church will go back to the good old days when religion served God by taking care of the poor, end of quote. Now, to me, this is what humanity is about. Muhammad Munib writes that humanity means forgetting your selfish interests at times when others need your help. And this is the premise upon which I single out Fuji music icon Wasiu Ayinde Marshal, also known as Kwam One, who cancelled his yearly birthday carnival for his 67th birthday last weekend. And he said, many people are praying for survival at this point. The feed well is a big issue for many. So he asked his friends to rather reach out to the less privileged. Popular actor Jide Kosoko, who also turned 70 in January, also postponed the celebration being planned for him by his colleagues due to the present economic hardship. And the most heartwarming of all is the African Development Bank, AFDB's president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who announced that the bank's board of directors have approved $134 million for Nigeria to implement an emergency food production plan. This is March. Nigerians are hungry again, just as they were during the COVID pandemic. And it's not famine-induced hunger. 1931 Pulitzer Prize-winning Pearl Buck says, and I quote, "Hunger makes a thief of any man." Rumi, a 13th century Persian poet, said, and I quote, "My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body or soul. I belong to the beloved, only that breath-breathing human being." Show your humanity too. Share your substance in this season of hunger.
Such and such sacrificed their birthday party. Such and such sacrificed. The pastor who told his congregation that they should go and feed the needy, and then another one, you know, and then I couldn't understand where Akinwumi, but anyway, that's me.
What I feel is that he wasn't obliged to do that for Nigeria. He didn't have to. I don't think he
African Development Bank. Africa Development Bank.
Yeah, so I think...
Does anybody understand what I'm saying? He doesn't have to push for Nigeria.
So
I get what Funke is saying, really.
Which is?
Because you see, the thing is that before you see a loan like that disbursed, there must have been a lot of, you know...
That's his job!
Yes, that's his job. But,
precisely.
You know,
that's what I'm saying. The pastor is
it doesn't have to come to Nigeria.
No, sorry, no, I'm sorry. I have to draw the line.
No, I think the thing is that
I'm coming, Ireti.
It doesn't have to come to Nigeria.
It's coming to Nigeria.
Directly opposite in our thinking. I was just going to tell Funke that it's good to do charity, and maybe if we inculcate that habit, maybe some people will even stop looting what they don't need. It's a good thing, but a million Mother Teresas will not solve your problem, okay? You need sustainability, sustainable ways of doing things. And one is what Akinwumi has done. So yes, kudos to him. And other people should also get to do their jobs, Ireti. If we are in all this quagmire because people don't do their jobs.
Should we clap for Ukraine for sending us
grains?
So we're now in a situation whereby when you even do your job, we clap for you.
Because for me, Honestly, I'm looking at it and I'm actually wondering, what is he doing there? Because
what was he doing there?
Yes, there's a loan. No, just that's the way I'm looking at it, and I see where you're coming at it from. It's a loan to Nigeria, and then he's not really doing Nigeria a favor because he gave Nigeria a loan. We asked for its African development back. If he doesn't come to Nigeria, he could go somewhere. Another one will come to Nigeria. And the most important thing is that 134 million, is it going to get to Nigeria, or is it going to be looted by some other people?
Okay, so that would not be Dr.
No, it's not his problem. I'm just saying.
But the thing is that he identifies with Nigeria and the fact that we're broke right now.
We cannot simply say because it's his job, there's not. No, it was a diplomatic success to get to influence $134 million to come to your country.
Then everybody's exceptional Nigerian there.
I don't understand.
Because the thing is that exceptional Nigeria.
Sorry, the pastor.
It's a no.
That
we are going to pay.
Yeah, the pastor.
Exactly, compared to.
Whilst you were talking about that pastor, the other pastor, I was comparing him or contrasting him. The opposite of what he did is what that woman at City of David did, who literally forgot that there are hungry people and went ahead and had that ugly, humongous party that overwhelmed the whole country. Yes, fine, I know everybody's allowed to celebrate themselves.
And it's
I get it. Permit me, please.
I think what we shouldn't lose sight of are the beautiful examples in Funke's story. Starting from
Kwam
which is where I was going to go. Thank you, Ande.
Yep. And the sacrifices that each individuals are making. Kwam, not. I think the message there is also what we spoke about. I think 2 weeks ago about empathy. And about how you need to be sensitive, in times like this. I mean, I had cause to talk to one of my mentors, and I was, concerned about the fast, way in which Access Bank, for instance, announced moved on quickly, and in the name of governance. I had issues with that. And my issues wasn't about the governance, it was about the sensitivity of it. That we have to be very sensitive as people, and that's what I take from the message. The Akiume part of it is here, neither here or there, because he gave us a loan, but he could have influenced it because he's a Nigerian. So, I mean, that one I'll give to him. But what I want to say is that this is a time when everybody needs to be sensitive. So if you're in a compound, for instance, and then there are people there in that compound, who have not got their salary, who can eat, who can drink, and then you decide to do a lavish ceremony, and then invite your friends, and they bring in all their expensive stuff. Let's be sensitive at this time. I think that's the message we're trying to pass.
That's the message, and of course, I know Ireti does not agree with me, but hey, that man doesn't have to allow anything to come to Nigeria.
Ambode, what's his name? Akiwumi Adesina is concerned, because I think we totally get it mixed up, for want of a nice description. But I'll go back to what I was saying. When you spoke about that pastor, that exceptional, and that was exceptional. Yeah. You say we celebrate exceptional things, not mundane, regular things, and they're exceptional because they don't happen every day. Right? Akiwumi's job is every day. And I really must make that clear, because this is going out on TV. So that pastor was exceptional because he said, it's not about building the church, it's about going out to feed. We don't get to hear that from pastors a lot. We don't even get it from imams a lot, right? That's number one. So that's why I contrast him, it's a he, right, with the female pastor who are the big, lavish, overwhelming birthday party, the equivalent of a masquerade at a carnival, right? That's one. Now, you then talk about Kwam. Yeah. And that's really what I want to point at. You see, there's the thing. Kwam actually doesn't need to.
He didn't have to.
Uncle Jide didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right? Uncle Jide is an exceptional actor, but he is not exceptionally rich. Uncle Jide would have been blessed with lots of gifts had he chose to have a big party. In fact, people would have gone out of their way, right?
They were planning
to do things for him, right? But he chose to say, you know what? I don't want you to do that. I would rather you either keep your money or look after other people. That's exceptional. So when people do exceptional things, yes, we should celebrate it. But when they do their job, it's just a case of we're done.
There are two ways of solving problems: the sensational way and the real issues. What is lavish? It's relative. We want to see more things like what Akinwumi is doing, right? People who are paid to take people out of poverty, right? If private citizens do it, kudos to them. But those that are paid, that are in positions to take people out of hunger, those are the people we should be looking at.
When things begin to fall apart, surely it's our humanity that holds us together. And I think Ireti will agree with me, even though we disagreed with Dr. Akinwumi's largest.
Of course, I agree with you, Funke. But I'm going to be talking about one bad egg. That egg is when the hindrance is another woman. Your worships, ladies and gentlemen, the case before you today reveals a profound betrayal of public trust. A woman was appointed to champion the rights and progress of Nigerian women, stands accused of undermining those very goals. On the 21st of August last year, Mrs. Uju Kennedy assumed the office of Minister of Women's Affairs. This ministry holds a critical mandate, that is, to represent and advance the interests of half of Nigeria's population. Yet, in the short time since her appointment, Mrs. Kennedy has demonstrated a shocking disregard for this responsibility. The evidence against her is unequivocal. Let me start. On September 7th, 2023, she advocated for child labor, a practice universally condemned. On September 17th, 2023, leaked recordings of her threatening witnesses involved in a sexual harassment case at the University of Calabar came out. February 28th, 2024, astonishingly, Mrs. Kennedy suggested women should, I quote, shut up to avoid being abused by their partners. This statement is a dangerous affront to victims of domestic violence, not just in Nigeria, all over the world. On March 4th, yes, she never stops. On March 4th, it's a whole calendar, I know. On March 4th, 2024, Mrs. Kennedy, Uju Kennedy, publicly stood alongside an alleged child abuser, defying justice and basic decency. On March 5th, 3 days to International Women's Day, Mrs. Kennedy chose to accuse Nigerian NGOs, yes, NGOs, those organizations that are largely led by women and vital to aiding the most vulnerable. She chose to accuse NGOs of corruption and financial mismanagement. The same NGOs who often operate with minimal funding, supplementing their work with personal sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, this pattern of behavior reveals a deep-seated hostility towards the very women that this minister is sworn to serve. Our actions are not merely incompetent, they are a direct attack on our progress. Ironically, Uju Kennedy owes her position to the efforts of the Nigerian women's movement, a movement she now viciously undermines. These women fought for greater inclusion, demanding the representation this ministry embodies. To see it so blatantly corrupted is a stain on Nigeria's honor. Now, this International Women's Month, I say, let's come together to demand the immediate resignation of Minister Uju Kennedy. You see, her continued presence is an insult to the dignity of Nigerian women and a threat to the future we all deserve. It's time we restore integrity to the Federal Ministry of Women's Affairs and Social Development and reclaim back its vital mission from the imposter Uju Kennedy.
You know what I'm so happy about?
It's a woman.
It's a woman.
Don't stop. I will. You will.
It's a woman.
Not them.
Not them.
Because if a guy is the one making all this argument, and they're very strong arguments, you know, because I think that we have to come to a society, to a place where we project our best values and our best persons. And if she doesn't represent the best of women, I mean, women should have the boldness to be able to say, no, she doesn't represent us. She needs to go. And to that, I would say I support the motion.
You know, one of the things that we have in this country, you know, beyond the fact that women are marginalized, is that they deliberately, especially as we've seen over time, in recent time, they deliberately look for the worst amongst women and actually put them there so that they'll be able to say, hey, they gave you people some position, see what you've done with it. You know, it's increasing more and more and more. For me, in terms of this motion, the fact is that the whole government itself is an illegitimate government, and this is Aisha Yesufu speaking. So all of them, they have no business there. So I'm not even making any demands to resign because, of course, it's, from my own opinion, it's a government that shouldn't even be there in the first place.
I'll agree with you 100% on this because my theme, if you notice, doesn't change. The topic might change, but the theme does not change, which is people who are given official responsibilities, offices, it's their duty to do something, and then they are doing the opposite. I will hold you responsible. Apart from the issue of child labor, which is a no-no, is a crime, if she is so cultural and she's sitting in her house giving her daughter advice, that is different. You cannot be Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development, put there to checkmate stuff like this, and then it brings you to the issue of meritocracy, part of what Aisha is trying to say. How do we give appointments in Nigeria? What's the level of exposure? I don't want to believe that because I've seen some paper qualifications and everything, this person was not totally unknown before. People must have interacted. Have we made the bar so low? I mean, even if you are my brother, there's a way you talk. I cannot even make you commissioner, not to talk of. You understand my point? And then you give minister. That's the mouthpiece of the president. So,
for someone who took over from Dame Pauline Talon, someone who really works, I mean, for me, who works in the menstrual health and hygiene space and has an NGO, Dame Pauline Talon was it for me. I remember her working on pad banks, a bank for pads for girls, nationally. The thing is, since Uju took over, what exactly has she done? We can't place a finger on what she has done in that ministry since she took over.
And this is her first International
from
Women's
one
Month.
gaffe to another, from this, that, and she's always talking against the people she ought to be building. So it doesn't look like she has an idea of what her responsibilities and roles should be in that office. It's a disgrace. And I'm happy that it was a man who replied her when she said women should shut up. When their husbands are... Yes, a man stood up to her to say, what do you mean by this? When you say women should shut up, are you saying that they are the base of the base, they ought not to have a voice? I don't understand how we ended up with such a woman as our Minister for Women Affairs and Social Development. We have been saying this for a long time. The president should listen to us. She doesn't have an idea what gender issues mean. She does not have an idea, and she cannot stay there and be perpetrating patriarchy that we are all fighting against.
Exactly.
End of story.
Thank you, Funke. So I'm going to close this because some of you at home may be wondering, the objectives of her office include, and I'm reading this, include stimulating action to promote civic, political, social, and economic participation of women, coordinating and monitoring women's programs, providing technical and financial support to women, non-governmental organizations, especially the National Council of Women's Societies. Those are the people that Uju Kennedy, and I'm not going to call you a minister anymore because you're not my minister. As far as I'm concerned, you're an imposter, you're taking up a space where you do not belong. The sooner you have the decency, especially given that we're in International Women's Month, to respect all of the women of Nigeria by resigning from that office, then, just then, we might begin to give you a look in. So join us next week, same time, same place, at the very same table. Until then, goodbye from us.
Goodbye.
Adios.